Hey, welcome back. So we're looking at Chapter 3, Federalism now. And this is important because we're going to be talking about federalism a whole lot throughout the year. It's a topic that comes up even today when we're discussing issues like same-sex marriage or gun control, marijuana legalization. So federalism is a really important issue, and it's something that we're still debating even today and trying to figure out how this best works for America. So let's go ahead and take a look at the reading. It was pages 86 through 90. And I want you to describe how a federal system differs from a unitary system. Now, in the reading, we also talk about a confederal system too, which was what the United States did under the Articles of Confederation. We were a confederal system during that, small window of time at the very beginning of U.S. history. We're also going to talk about what federalism means for you, the average citizen. So let's just go ahead and jump into it and look at this nice slide here with all this information. We're going to skip that. Same thing with this thing, we're going to skip all that too, and we're going to talk briefly about the U.S. federal system and that it is established in the Constitution and it creates two levels of government. It creates a national government and it creates a state government, okay? And they're going to be co-equals, but we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So, now why did they create a federal system? Well, we lived under a unitary system with the British, didn't like it. We then created a brand new government under the Articles of Confederation, so we lived in a confederal system, or confederal system. Didn't work out, there were issues with that too, so the framers of the Constitution dreamt up a brand new system, never had existed before, and said, why don't we create a federal system? And they basically dreamt up this new form of government, where instead of having a unitary or a confederal system, they created this brand new idea of government that existed on two levels, but work together. So what does that mean for you and I? It means that if we look at this Venn diagram, there's powers of the national government in the blue circle. There are powers of the state governments. These are reserved powers. They're in the red circle. Okay, and there's some overlap. That means they share some powers. We call those concurrent powers, and we're going to get more into that in the next reading. So we have enumerated powers on one side, those that belong to the national government. They are the responsibility of the national government, which were significantly more than what was under the Articles of Confederation. I think under the Articles of Confederation there were like 2, and all the rest belonged to the states. So if you have the states having all the power and the national government having very little, who's really more powerful? States. Okay, and they didn't share very many powers either. So, it was like 2 circles next to each other, and that was it. And one circle had most of the powers, the other one didn't have any. So then we have reserved powers on the state side under federalism. So let's go back to what we were talking about with unitary, confederal, and federal systems. And this infographic, I think, does a great job of differentiating between the three. And I'll explain. So here in the unitary system, all 3 systems, the people are the power. This goes back to Rousseau and Locke and Hobbes. People are the power. People elect a national government and a unitary system, and that national government is all-powerful. It then creates local regional governments, state governments, colonies, you name it. So under the British system, we had the people in Britain who voted. The U.S. Colonies did not. That central government then established all 13 colonies. If we go back in U.S. history, some colonies were religious colonies, some were economic colonies, some were political colonies. They were started for different reasons, but the national government exerts control over all of them, and if it decided to, it can get rid of one of those colonies like that. It can say, we're pulling your charter, there is no longer a Massachusetts, we're going to just smash you together, and we're going to make you join New York, and now you're part of New York then. So whatever rights you had, or whatever entitlements you had as a Massachusetts resident now are gone because you're part of New York. You have to abide by their laws. The national government decides they want to do it that way. Okay. In the confederal system, we have the states that are all powerful, and they kind of just participate in this national government at their leisure. And finally, we have the federal system, where the people are powerful, and we belong simultaneously to a national government and a state government, and they're co-equals. So to make this kind of easy, I'll put up here some easy to write down stuff. All-powerful national government, all-powerful state government, co-equal governments. Okay. So, what does this mean for you and I? Well, means that, it doesn't matter what state we live in, we're always part of the national government here. And the national government is all powerful, so they can make laws that affect you in different ways. Okay, over here we belong to two simultaneously, the national and the state. Okay, and the national government ensures that certain rights are upheld for all people. So the Bill of Rights, that you can move from state to state and that Bill of Rights is the same. But each state does its own thing. Where here, it doesn't matter where you move, the national government is all powerful. So it's a little bit of a difference in terms of how it operates. And I'll explain in a little more detail. Actually, let's use one really good topic right now, gun control. Okay. A few months ago, or a little while ago, there was an incident in New Zealand where you had a mass shooting, and then literally within a couple of days, the New Zealand Parliament, because they have a unitary system, abolished assault weapon or assault style weapons immediately in the country, gone. Okay, because Parliament said so, and every state had to abide by that. Okay, it doesn't happen in the United States like that because we live in a federal system. And one of the important parts about a federal system is we have a Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights guarantees you certain things. And one of those, Second Amendment, is the right to bear arms. That's all it says, just the right to bear arms. So, Supreme Court has kind of just upheld that. And it basically means that whatever state you live in, they have to allow you to own firearms. That's it. Now, the details around that are all up to each state to determine. So, for instance, California has the most restrictive gun laws in the country. Our next door neighbor, Arizona, has the least restrictive gun laws in the country. Now, that does not mean you can run to Arizona and buy guns and move back to California or come back here right away. You're breaking the law in California because you have to abide by California's laws. So if you're a resident of Arizona and you decide you're going to move to California, you have to check the gun laws in California and make sure all of your firearms and whatever you own is California compliant. Otherwise, you can get arrested and go to jail for that. And you can even plead, well, I used to live in Arizona and I moved to California and I didn't know that this was the law. It's your responsibility to know the laws of the states you're moving into. So that's where there's some difference. That Constitution protects you, your Bill of Rights, and one of those things is that ability to own firearms. So moving from state to state, you just have to know what the rules are, but you can own a firearm from state to state. So, make this super simple, you can buy something in California and you can pretty much go anywhere else in the United States and you're totally legal. That is not the case if you're moving from Arizona to other states. Again, there's varying levels of that restrictiveness, and California is the most restrictive. So if you're going to go from Arizona to California, you have to know ahead of time what rules you have to follow when you get here. So, that is the basic difference between all-powerful national government and co-equal governments. And then we can even say I put some stuff down here, going from state down to county, city, and school board. And we're going to get into that in just a moment when I get to the next slide. I think that's about all I have. So, what does living in a federal system mean for you and I? It means that most of us in the U.S. live under at least 5 different governments. So up here, I put them up here for you guys. We are all U.S. citizens. We're all residents of California. We all are residents of San Bernardino County. Most of you are residents of Fontana, although there are some people from Rialto, but that's going to get complicated because we're going to get to school boards. And the school board's boundaries don't necessarily match up with the city boundaries. It's complicated why, but, we're not going to get into it. And then we also have a water district. Who knew? Like, nobody does, but we do have an elected Fontana Water District. It's a board of people who are in control of the water district. So ultimately, what does this mean? Each area has responsibilities that it can impose on the people living there, the jurisdictions, which means really taxes. So I'll just use myself as an example. I'm a U.S. citizen, so I pay U.S. federal taxes. I pay California state taxes. I also pay San Bernardino County sales taxes. So every time I go to the store and it's like, you pay that sales tax, you're paying it to San Bernardino County. I don't live in Fontana, but I live in Highland. So as a resident of Highland, I pay property taxes, which the city gets a piece of. Okay, and also that gets attached to my property taxes are taxes from the school board. So if the school district wants to build a new school, they just don't have the money to do it magically. They have to generate that money from somewhere. So oftentimes they will put out a what's called a bond, and all the people who live within that school district boundary are taxed on usually their property taxes, it's a small little extra, to build a new school. So they just tack on a little more money. And then even the Fontana Water District can exercise power over you. Now they don't tax you, but they can determine how much they charge you for water. So in a way that is a tax, because water isn't free. They charge you for the water you're using at your house, or even the drinking fountain at school today. They're determining the rate at which you as a citizen pay or businesses pay for that use of water. Okay, so we do get taxed quite a bit in the U.S., but it's a lot of different levels. And if you don't like the way Fontana is doing it, you move to Rialto. You don't like the way Rialto is doing it, you can move out of Fontana and you can move into San Bernardino County. Now, if you didn't know this, cities only have their boundaries so far, but what's in between cities? County property. So you don't like living in Fontana? Fine. Drive north, past the 15 freeway up Sierra. Once you get past the 15 freeway, you're now in what's called unincorporated San Bernardino County. So you don't even live in a city anymore. You just live in San Bernardino County. So you eliminate the Fontana Water District, and you might eliminate Fontana Water District. But now you're living in San Bernardino County, and there might be a different water district there, or you might have to do something special to get your water. That's how that works. So you can move around, and that's one of the joys of living in a federal system. Is if you don't like these things, you can move from place to place, and it's not a problem. Where if we go back to the all-powerful state government under the Confederal system, way back when we were under the Articles of Confederation, maybe you didn't like being a New Yorker, and you wanted to move to Massachusetts because you heard things were better there. The only problem is Massachusetts, because their sovereign says, yeah, you know what? We don't take New Yorkers. And here's why. So you wouldn't be able to move to Massachusetts, where in the United States under the federal system today, if you don't like living in California, you move to Arizona. You don't like living in Arizona, you move to Hawaii. And no one's stopping you. The only thing that really impedes your ability to move is your own finances. But every state has to accept you. That's that full faith and credit and privileges and immunities clause. You're allowed to move all over the United States without any problems. I hope that helps. I hope there wasn't too much on there for you, and it's a decent explanation. If you have questions, I'm going to get more of these questions clarified as we do more of the reading. All right.